Hi, my name is Vittorio Viarengo and I run marketing for the Cloud Business Unit at McAfee. Today I want to cover some best practices to build and deliver outstanding presentations. And although all of you are professional presenters, you do this for a living, I'll guarantee you that if you stick with me in this video, you will learn some tricks that will help you in your professional life. When you deliver a great presentation, you can really help the audience understand complex concept and really help the sales process. But if you don't, you can make it for a very painful experience. So let's see how we avoid that. The first thing is never pack too much information into a slide. Ideally, you should have one concept per slide. And we're going to cover in a second that you should never obsess about how many slides you have. It's much more important to have slides that people can digest compared to having, few slides that people don't digest, like this one. When you see a slide like this, these are there are more handouts than slides. And there's a place for that and a format for that, which is a white paper or a printout, not a slide. Because the audience, of course, is confused. Where am I going to pay attention? To the title, to the graphics here, to the logos? Just a disaster. Let alone technical diagrams. And we're going to talk in a second how you can take complex technical diagrams and break them down so that they're actually digestible. The second thing, and this should be a no-brainer, but I see this every day when I see people present. Never, ever, never, ever, 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 never use bullet points. There are so many reasons why. Let's cover some. First of all, when you just do bullet points, it shows that you really didn't care about that presentation. You just said, file, new slide, you start typing, and there it is. So that is not really respectful for the audience, and they are conducive to pack a lot of information into the slide. Because by default, typically it's font 12, it's just a disaster. It has been proven scientifically that people read faster than they listen, so they're going to start reading the slides instead of listening to you, which it's not the purpose of the presentation. And I mean, these two slides are built with bullet points to prove the point, right? If you're probably right now, as I'm doing this, you're reading the slides instead of listening to me. We will provide you with a PowerPoint template that has a bunch of slides that are designed to achieve what a bullet does, but with a graphic form so that they're more compelling. If you don't have that, then I recommend that you use smart graphics. So you go in the menu, use smart graphics, and depending on what you need, there are a lot of things in PowerPoint that you can use that will look more professional and don't look like bulleted list. To help you build more compelling slides, here is a critique language that you can use to guide you. First of all, if you have a set of things, you should always make sure that the more important one is highlighted. Or create space, create white space around the main concept that you want to convey. If there is a hierarchy in the information you're presenting, make sure that hierarchy is represented visually, that the most important thing is bigger than the other ones. And if you have a set of slides that build upon each other and create a structure, make sure that the previous concept that was up to the right keeps staying up to the right, so you build that mental picture in the audience and you keep building upon it, always highlighting the things you're talking about in the specific slides. And finally, if there is some sort of flow, make sure that this flow again is represented in the way you present the information visually in the slide. So whenever you build the slides, if it doesn't fit into one of these pattern, then you're doing something wrong and potentially you're building a slide that is confusing. This is one of the most important takeaways that I want you to really make yours. Do not worry about the number of slides. It's so much better to have 50 slides with one concept each so that you can really nail that concept and really help the audience understand what you're talking about than having like 10 slides that are packed with information that is confusing. And this is a visual that helps you understand that. So you can go through the same amount of information by splitting the concept in one concept per slide, then in this case having just 3 slides with a lot of concepts. So let me give you an example. This is a slide. Say that I'm talking about partner marketing, and this is not a horrible slide. So I have 4 points. I did the work to find some icons to make it a little more compelling. I highlighted something. The font is not too small. It's an okay slide. But as I'm going through this, again, the audience will start reading that, and I don't have a chance to really punch the point that I'm trying to make. So the same information can be done in the same amount of time in 4 different slides. Here you go. Okay, now we have a slide that has space, has a big takeaway. We did 12,000 leads with partners. Great. We have a visual in the middle that kind of helps remembering the concept and so on and so forth. Next, we doubles the amount of people that open our email. So now you're paying attention to me. You're looking at that, and then together we can remember what I'm trying to convey, and so on and so forth. So it's a much more pleasant experience, and it takes the same amount of time. And you'll see in the slides that we create for the business unit, you'll see that we go with typically more slides than usual. But look at the slides; they're pretty short and sweet, so you can keep the audience with you and move things along. Of course, don't use small fonts. I mean, if I had $1 every time I sat in the back of the room, even a big conference with people that should know what they're doing, and there's like font 12 and I'm 30 yards away. But even if you're in the same room and you have font 12, I'm just like giving up. How can you see it? And of course, we're all getting older, so that doesn't make it easier. And this is what the result. So you see this font, I don't even know. I'm like sitting like 2 yards from this, and I cannot see it. So whenever you find yourself using font 12, even 14, something is wrong. You're either packing too much information, or you're putting information that nobody will be able to absorb, read, absorb, and retain. The other thing that I've seen people do is that they don't stick to the template, right? So typically, a PowerPoint template allows you to stay out of trouble. When you do File New, and then you create a new slide, Command N or Control N, you will have a set of slides template that pretty much will look on brand with the company you work for, in our case McAfee. But some people don't like that, and they try to be smart or fancy with it, and then they end up with slides like this, which are every time you mess around with fonts and colors and shades and things like that, it's a clear giveaway of a naive approach to presentations. And I know you don't do it, but I just put it out there because I still see it sometimes. The other thing that is very important, and I see too many people discounting this, animations are really, really important and useful if they're used properly, because it allows you to break down complex concept in a way that is more digestible. So let me give you an example. This is actually from the McAfee First Meeting Deck, the Cloud First Meeting Deck. And this presentation is done without animation. It's trying to cover all the way that data exfiltrate for SaaS applications, and then what we do about it. If I start explaining this to you, even if I point things at the screen, you'll get confused. It's too much to absorb. And the problem is that sometimes you just have to go through a complex architecture, because we build complex things out there with our software. So this is the better way to do it. You start with a almost blank slide, and then you use the animation both to help you as a presenter to follow the proper storyline, as well as for the audience to absorb it. So you say, okay, how does data exfiltrate from SaaS application? First, through collaboration, right? Blah, 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 blah. And then the other thing is through unmanaged devices. Now we have bad actor. I'm going fast now just to prove the point, right? So now you created this framework in the audience. It's okay, I have SaaS application, I have vectors. Okay, cool. Now what are you going to do about it? Okay, now I'm going to use animation to say, hey, let's focus on collaboration. On collaboration, we do this. We do that. And you can see the best practice when you get an animated deck from somebody else, go through it a couple of times and just click on it, look what happens on the screen, and describe it. It makes your life as a presenter easier, as well as helping the audience understand. Anyway, let me click through this slide, you understand. So whenever we give you a deck that has slide animation, don't remove them. They're there for a reason. Practice them, and you'll make it for a much better experience for you and for the audience. The other thing is, if you cannot have one concept per slide, like in the previous slide that we just saw, just make sure that you will highlight the main takeaway, right? So this is another slide from the First Meeting Deck. There's a little bit of animation, you tell the story, the advent of unmanaged devices, blah, 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 and then boom, punch them with the takeaway. The takeaway is that 87% of companies allow their employees to use personal devices at work. Boom. That's the thing that you want to remember out of this. Of course, increasingly, we are building complex or rich presentation that may get big inside, so be mindful of that. One thing you can do is to go to File, compress Pictures, and select on screen. This will take all the pictures in your presentation and compress them. So, typically you can see like sometimes even 10x reduction in the file size. Right? The other thing that I recommend is whenever you can use a more interesting layout. As I said in the template, we're going to put you some layouts that you can use out of the box. But like this is an example where you do new slides, text, and an image, and there's a good effort here. I gave you B for effort. Somebody here is trying to put a little graph on the back, but it's still too much to digest. Even if it's not a lot of text, the audience is still reading all that while I'm speaking. So the better way to do even a simple slide like this is to put a little box there and say, first of all, we're going to talk about leadership. We're trying to win the Magic Quadrant. Okay, now you're following me, you're listening to me, right? That's just an aid on the screen to remember what we're talking about. Then you're going to beat the plan. And to beat the plan, this is what we're going to do. And finally, we're trying to get more efficiency by leveraging blah, 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 blah. So look at the difference between this and this slide. It looks so much more professional, and all I had to do is to use a template that is provided to me, or just do File, new graphic object, and put a couple of squares there. That's not a lot of effort, but makes a difference in terms of how the presentation come off. The other thing is I see this is too often, and this is typical of people that are trying but not hard enough, right? They take a picture from the web, they plug it into the presentation, and then distort the graphic to make it fit, or because they don't know how to do it. And that makes it look really, really unprofessional. So remember, this is pretty simple to fix. Just resize the images from the corner. The older version of PowerPoint, actually you have to shift click to properly resize, but now you can just click on the corner whenever you copy and paste anything into a presentation, and it will resize it properly. So, and make it look professional. The other thing, always set the transparent color. One of the typical customization that people do is to take the logo of the customers and put it in the presentation, but then it has the color on the background, and it looks not very professional. So what you do, two things. One, you can go to the picture menu, color, set transparent color, and then you click on the color that you want to remove, and that will create a transparent image, right? The other way that you can do this is to add the word transparent when you Google image search that image. So you, for example, McAfee logo transparent, you'll find the ones that have a transparent background have that pattern on the bottom that will tell you that that's the case. This is another one, whenever if you're creating new slides, even from the template, sometimes you have to make room for the stuff below, and you move the title, and then you end up with something like this, which is kind of distracting. So don't do that. That's an easy one to avoid. And some other things. Avoid drop shadow. That was cool in the 90s, and it's not cool anymore. Gradient, gloss effect. Just stick to the template as much as possible, and you'll do fine. So this kind of wraps up some of the best practices for building slides, or to use slides that were prepared for you by the marketing team or some other organization. Now let's talk about the way you present, right? Because of course the presentation is most of the battle, right? The analogies that I always use is great musician, right, can take any sort of music and make it sound great, and can improvise and can do all sorts of things because they're very good at being musicians, right? Doesn't matter what kind of music they have in the background. So if you have decent or good slides, then it's up to you to make it look great and deliver a great presentation. So let's look at some best practices there as well. There's no shortcut to preparation. Preparing for both the customers you're talking to, look at their 10K, 10Q, look at the business challenges that they have, do your research and so on and so forth, but also prepare for with the slides. Look at the video recording that we always associate with new decks, prepare, try the animation, and so on and so forth. And then customize, right? So whenever we ask you to learn a pitch, the reason why we ask you to learn it as is so that we know that you know the story and you can stay on message. But then we trust you to pull slides from the deck to customize for the specific customer. The customer may want to go deeper on Office 365 or something, or some other topic. So but if you can, pull slides from the official decks so they look professional, or at the very least apply the techniques that we learned earlier in this presentation. Stand up, stand up, stand up. I hate when people present by sitting, especially from the back of the room. It's such a bad experience for the audience because you're looking at the presenter, then you're looking at the slide, then the slide has a lot of text, so you're reading the slide. It's just not the right thing to do. So stand up. I stand up even if I have like 2 or 3 people. Sometimes at EBC we only have 2 or 3 people. I stand up, sign of respect, and also, it's harder to ignore somebody who stands up than somebody who's sitting. Okay. The other thing is walk around, especially if you have an audience. Sometimes you have an audience with 10, 20 people in a room, U-shaped table, walk around, and draw people into the presentation, make eye contact with everybody. It's inevitable that sometimes with the lock, or maybe the most senior person, the person that asks the tougher questions, try to avoid that because other people are there, and even if they don't ask questions, maybe they're actually paying attention. So that spread the love, look around, and make eye contact with everybody. Remember, it's not about the presentation, it's about you. That's why you want to walk around, stand up, make eye contact. It's about you and you. People buy from people, and people listen to people. So make sure that the presentation is there as an aid. It's all about you and how prepared you are and how comfortable you are with the content. If you're doing a WebEx, this is something else that drives me crazy. Turn on that camera. I know that people have security concerns, so keep it shut most of the time. But if you're presenting on a WebEx, turn that camera on. Again, people buy from people. The chances that people are doing their email or checking Facebook is already very high. At least if they see your smiley face there, you increase the chances that are actually paying attention to you. And then, of course, don't read the slides like your teleprompter. Right? Don't turn around, look at it. Especially if you have slides that are well done. There are very few words there, so use that as, a guide to telling the story. But tell the story, don't turn around. Yeah, this is the funny one. In 90% of the cases, when somebody says that's a great question, is they're buying time because they don't know the answer. So never say that. If somebody says, ask you a question, say, let me address that, or don't say that's a great question because it's a tell that you're winging it. So don't do that. And of course, we all do it. We all do it. We say right, as I said, and this type of the things. So try to avoid them. We all do it. It's annoying, but see, I just did it. The way to see if you're doing it, record yourself, just like I'm doing right now. It's so, it really puts your ego back into place when you look yourself in after giving a presentation to see if you're doing the right thing, if you're humming, if you're asking the questions and things like that. So record yourself. It'll make you a much better presenter. So this is it. This is basically a crash course. I went through a lot of presentation training. I don't know if I'm a great presenter, but I've seen great presenters. I've seen bad presenters. I've seen excellent presentation. I've seen bad presentations. So I try to collect in this quick video some of the things that I learned, and I trust you'll find them useful in your day-to-day job as you're out there selling the McAfee product line. Thank you.